He is a good target. Number 2 with the yellow gloves right here. He stands inside the piece. You pull the worm if you like. He stands inside the piece, and his main job is to insert the round when number 5 is going to bring it up over here. He is holding in his hand a worm, all right? So think of a powder bag, a big old powder bag up here, and it would be made out of cotton or linen or whatever you got, really. Hopefully something that's going to burn relatively easily, because you don't want a lot of it left within the chamber. Now, if I had 2.5 pounds of powder out here and the gun went off, I'm probably going to leave the end of it right there. You'll notice that it does the same thing with the aluminum foil. That worm right there is inserted into the chamber in order to try to retrieve the bits and pieces, the remnants of that powder bag, which are left over from the previous firing. Now our number 3 man right over here, she'll hold up her hand. She has a piece of leather on her thumb. That is called a thumb stall. And her and number 1 are best friends. Why? Because that thumb stall, when she steps up to the vent, when she steps up there, there's a hole in the rear of the cannon right there, and she is going to plug it. When the number 1 is sponging and ramming, she is shutting off the oxygen supply inside that cannon. What does that do? It keeps the oxygen from fanning the embers. You don't want to ram the next round and boom, it goes off, because number 1's arm will go about 150 yards downrange. Her other job right here is a priming wire. You notice that? It is a non-sparking material, and her job is to insert it into the vent and prick a hole in the powder bag, which will expose it to the ignition system of the number 4 man, which is next. You notice that she has in her hand a lanyard right here. It's got a rope, basically a handle, a rope, and a hook on it. At the end of it is the ignition system, the friction primer. Think of a hand grenade. Same thing as pulling the pin out of it up here, all right? You're going to hook the lanyard to that pin right there, and the top of the friction primer has the same compound that you would find in an ordinary kitchen match, fulminate of mercury. When you pull, just like a grenade, when he pulls the lanyard, pulls the pin, that pin creates a spark. That tube is filled full of gunpowder, and the friction primer inserted in behind the cannon shoots down on top of that 2.5 pounds of powder, and the gun goes boom, right there. The great thing about this compared to the Revolutionary War is you can shoot this gun in all different types of weather as long as you keep your powder dry out here. Okay, rounding out the crew back here with the nice red mark on him so we can shoot him is the number 5 man right over here. You will notice on his side he has a gunner's haversack. Looking right here, you would insert the round inside here, and it would protect it from any sparks or embers which might be running up and down, floating up and down the battlefield. The one thing you want to have with your number 5 man is the capacity to be toting 14 to 15 pounds per round, or possibly even 2 to 3 rounds in that gunner's haversack and run it up here. He is going to get very winded. So you probably won't, you won't want a small fry toting these shells up and down from the ammunition chest, the limber. Now back here we have the number 6 and the number 7 man. The number 6 man's job is to fix the round. You will notice the gunner over here will call for a round. If it's explosive, the number 6 job is to fix the fuse. They knew, they were you know, good at math. They knew that the velocity of the ball, and they knew how many seconds it would take to travel. So if he calls for 800 yards, then they know that requires X amount on the fuse. And number 6 would cut that fuse. Number 7's job is probably the simplest on the crew, but one of the most important. That job is to open and close the door on the ammunition chest. There is roughly 60 to 70 pounds of black powder in this thing, plus all the munitions, all the balls that go inside there. And the last thing you want is a spark going off right here, because that could blow the whole crew up. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to have the gunner, who I forgot to go through, who is in charge of right here, is actually going to be in command. He is holding in his hand what is called a pendulum hoss. That is the sight. We get a lot of questions about that too. It is basically, you'll watch it, he's going to set it on the back of the cannon, and this thing right here is adjustable. There are degrees on the outside of it. And basically he slides it up and down to what degrees he wants, and he aligns it with the front sight. You see where the yellow glove is on my tube right now? There's a front sight right there, and he would align it with the front and the back. Also notice the gunner, when he goes up there, the number 3 man in the red trim will assist him in sighting the piece, meaning that you can actually sight this piece entirely by hand signals during a battle. You would need that with so much noise going off. So I'm going to have the gunner go through a dry fire. You can see how the dance works, so to speak, and then he will go through the real thing.
Cannoneers, both! Load, solid shell, 1,600 yards!
Solid shell, 1,600 yards.
You can see him sponging the piece. Number 5 man's coming with the round. Number 2 man with the yellow gloves is waiting on him. Number 1 taps the muzzle. Number 2 inserts the round and gets out of the way. Notice number 3 with their thumb over the vent. Number 1 seats the round. The gunner comes up to sight the piece. He taps. That's a signal to move the trail. Throws his hands up, he's ready to go.
Ready!
Number 3 and number 4 step in. Number 3 pricks the powder bag. Number 4 inserts the friction primer, the ignition system. They pull the lanyard. Number 3 gets out of the way.
Fire! Whoa.
Boom, the gun goes off. They would also have, ladies and gentlemen, a reduced drill. Obviously, you would have cannoneers that would go down, mostly from battle wounds. You would have to have the capabilities to do this gun maneuver this gun with reduced numbers out here. Everybody should have known each other's tasks.
Cannoneers, both! Load, solid shot! 1,000 yards! Ready! Fire! Get it,
That's all I'm saying.